Hello, welcome to the MRO show presented by Chadwell Supply. I'm your host, Rebecca Wagner. Chadwell Supply is the favorite maintenance supplier of multifamily professionals. Find out why at chadwellsupply.com. For those who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Name is Nichole Curl. I've been in multifamily for about 30 plus years. I started off as a leasing agent, worked my way up through operations, switched to maintenance, worked my way up through maintenance, and then switched to construction, worked my way up through there. Then I was director of construction and facility maintenance. I ended up starting to give back to the industry and training individuals, became NAA faculty, and then just launched into full-time training.
That's awesome. So I'm trying to think back how many years we've known each other. I'm going to guess 25. Does that sound about right?
It might have been 26.
It might be 26. Okay, so we met in Houston, Texas, and I, like you, kind of found this industry by an accident. I needed a job, and I went to a career fair, and a company approached me and said, "Would you like to do leasing?" And I said, "No, thank you. Have a nice day." And a couple of weeks later, I was still unemployed, and so I called up that individual and said, "Actually, I would like to do leasing." So, and that's where we kind of came together many years ago, and so. Through that, we increased our career, increased our knowledge. We went through some pretty serious storms together. Talk about that. We went through a pretty serious crisis in our market.
Right. Tropical Storm Allison was only a tropical storm, but flooded our entire area. In that 5,000 unit portfolio, we had like 2,900 units. So do that math. That's second stories that got wet. So it was. You learn a lot in those types of situations. It's, it's not trial by fire, it's trial by water. And so there was just a huge learning curve, but it was also, we happened to be in a very unique situation in that large community of employees where everybody came together and bonded together and everybody helped each other and worked together for a common goal. And I think that, and unfortunately that area was just very prone to flooding. So obviously Allison was the worst. But we got occupancy back up, got those units remediated and a year later.
Yeah.
So that was June 2001. And then in October of 2002, I returned from my honeymoon and it started storming.
Oh, no.
And it flooded again. And it was about, I think it was like 1,800 or 1,900 units that got flooded out then. Now, it wasn't full stories, but it was still a 4-foot floodplain.
Yeah.
A year later, in November of 2003, it flooded again. It was only about 900 units. Yeah. At that point, the investor said, "We are We're done.
We're done, yeah.
Because, of course, after Allison, the 100-year flood, they're like, "Oh, it's never going to flood again." So they dropped flood insurance. So it was just a disaster. But those crises
teach you.
It teach you
so
tons
much.
Of things.
Right. It helped me learning managerial skills and kind of navigating, without a handbook. There was no handbook on that. We had to figure it out. And so,
exactly.
That many years ago, I still remember you kind of coming into our property and talking about mold and remediation and all the things that we needed to be aware of that I just had no idea. And so I just have always been so thankful for you and everything that you taught us that many years ago. And to be able to see you where you are in your career today, helping thousands of people. You're a blessing to so many people. And I just want to say thank you. So when you hear maintenance technicians talking about their career, what advice would you give them?
Well, the first and most important thing is to continue to invest in your education. You have got to apply yourself. Nobody else is going to do it for you. Don't rely on somebody else to give you the information that you need. Go and seek those opportunities and just educate yourself.
Right. Why do you think multifamily professionals have doubts about pursuing a long-term career in multifamily?
I think especially in maintenance that, for so many years, maintenance guys were kind of overlooked, right? They weren't, we used to be able to find a maintenance guy a dime a dozen, right? You can't do that anymore. There's over 3 million vacant skilled trade positions in the U.S. and enrollment in trade schools is down 27%. And we've seen a slight increase in the last year or so, but it's so small that it's no way that it can fill the gap. And so a lot of the trained, advanced, really skilled technicians went to other industries because they were being compensated. The apartment industry is a little late to the game in responding to those salary requirements, right? So they're just now starting to compensate maintenance guys because they have to pay them to keep them, right?
Right.
But we're also getting newer and newer, greener and greener, less and less experience. And so the need for training is even greater now than it has been in the past.
So what are some ways leaders within our industry can kind of help encourage and reward this career path?
I think the first and foremost is you have to decide what that career path looks like, and it may not be the same for each individual person. If you look at on the office side, right, someone who's a really, really good leasing agent, right, they could sell anything, right? The sayings you could sell ice
to an
cubes,
Eskimo
right,
or whatever.
Yeah. I think that person who's a person, right?
Yes.
They're not the same person that's a good accountant. Right? Accounting, you're more like introverted, you're focused on those numbers. So why is the career path to go from a leasing agent to an assistant manager when an assistant manager job is bookkeeping?
Right.
Right?
Different skills.
Totally different skill. And just because you're good at an assistant manager doesn't mean that you're a good manager. I can manage tasks versus managing a team. The same thing goes for maintenance. Just because the maintenance guy can fix everything does not mean that he can lead a team.
Right.
So I think the biggest thing is to define what that career path looks like and say, okay, where do you want to go in your career? What's the natural progression? What are your skills? Because I think that we ought to be capitalizing on, like, if you have a guy that's great at plumbing, let him be great at plumbing, but have him mentor those who aren't as strong in plumbing. If you have the guy that's great in HVAC, same thing. Don't assign the HVAC ticket to the plumber. Let's be strategic in what we do. We want to get the best. You put the best resource in front of that problem.
And I think so many times they just like grab whoever's available.
Right.
Versus thinking it through and what's going to be the best strategic plan.
Because you want to solve that resident's problem. You don't want to send somebody just to respond and then not solve the problem.
So going off of that, what would you do or how would you encourage someone that once they have the drive, but they don't necessarily have the skill? How do we do that? How do we teach them, encourage them?
Well, obviously, Chadwell University is a great place to start. We'll be able to help beginners to more advanced technicians and, develop a program that works for each individual company, right?
Yeah.
Because, people have different positions. They have different, some people have like a tech 1, tech 2, tech 3, and some people, it's just a porter, a make ready. Service tech. And so they may not distinguish the roles as much. So it just depends on that company structure, but we can partner with those organizations and look at what are their strategic goals and how do we partner with them to support them.
Okay. So what is one key step every maintenance pro could make right now, no matter where where they're headed in their career, but to begin achieving those career goals? What's one step they could take?
The first step is coming up with a plan. Define what do I want to do and then we find out how do we do it. But if you don't know what you want to accomplish, there isn't a how or a why. So I think, also understanding your why. If you've got to make your priorities based on what your why is, because your priorities are going to be different. And so I think I think the first step is, okay, what do I want to do? Okay, what are the resources that I can tap in to do this? And obviously exploring that partnership that you have with Chadwell and in leveraging Chadwell University, and let us come together with you, tell us what your needs are, and let's partner together to make it happen.
Well, Nichole, thank you so much for sharing some practical ways, we can develop these careers within multifamily. Is there any other final thoughts you'd want to share with our listeners?
I just encourage everybody I think this is a great industry. I mean, like I said, I started off as a leasing agent and now I'm a maintenance construction expert, right?
Yes.
And I think it's just, what do you want to do and what, maintenance and especially in the apartment industry, you're a jack of all trades. You're a problem solver. And I think that's really important that everybody just give it a try, right?
Yes.
It's a great industry. I think almost all of us ended up here by accident.
I do have that same story. I started in leasing and I'm like, why am I here? Oh my gosh,
Right.
now I'm vice president of,
Exactly.
marketing. So you never know where it's going to lead you.
Never
That's
know.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the MRO show. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast service. And for more episodes of the MRO show, check out chadwellsupply.com/podcast.